The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Sometimes being an insider means you understand the joke that only certain ones really know. Other times, it gets you into exclusive places. As an AFA insider, you'll get information about issues and policies that can dramatically impact our families and our Christian rights. And you won't have to travel to D.C. or even dress up to get it. Find out more and sign up at afa.net/activism.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. The Egyptian illegal alien terrorist who attacked a Boulder, Colorado event in support of Israeli hostages in Gaza remains in jail. Madeline Rivera with the latest.
Police say the suspect targeted this group, which regularly demonstrates for the Israeli hostages in Gaza. They say he went to their location in Boulder dressed as a gardener so he could blend in and waited for them to arrive. Police say the suspect, 45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Solomon, had tried to buy a gun, but he was rejected because he's not a legal citizen. So he turned to Molotov cocktails, they say. While searching Solomon's car, authorities found paperwork with the words Israel, Palestine, and USAID. Solomon is charged with a federal hate crime and multiple state charges, including 16 counts of attempted first-degree murder.
The fact that this terrorist was allowed in the country and was allowed to stay has a lot of people asking, where was Biden's vetting process? White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
They had no vetting process. This is something President Trump has been calling attention to for years. He talked about this on the campaign trail, how the Biden administration was allowing illegal aliens from all over the world to come into our country illegally, unvetted, untested. We had a wide open border policy, and this administration is focused on deporting as many of these illegal aliens who entered our country as possible.
During the last few months of Joe Biden's presidency, thousands of pardons and other policies were signed with an auto pen. Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett doubts whether Biden knew what was being signed and explains why he thinks all of Biden's top staffers played a part.
Because they're going to have to show, somebody's going to show the paper trail from where some of these pardons and other things that went on the last few months, the thousands of pardons that were given. There's no way in the world Joe Biden knew who they were.
High school girls in Washington state stage a protest after a boy wins a second straight girls state track championship. The boy, who now goes by the name Veronica Garcia, a senior at East Valley High School in Spokane, took home the girls' 400-meter 2A state title on Saturday. Alexa Anderson is a girl, and she and a teammate stepped off the podium to protest officials giving the trophy to a boy.
It's unfair because biological males and biological females compete at such different levels that allowing a biological male into our competition is taking up space and opportunity from all these hardworking women. The girl in 9th who should have been in 8th and had that podium spot had that taken away from her, as well as many others. We stepped off the podium in protest, and as you can see in the video, an official kind of told us, hey, go over there. If you're not going to participate, get out of the photos.
A slate of pro-LGBTQ bills have been introduced in the Washington legislature at the beginning of this year's so-called Pride Month.
The suite of bills would ban counseling of transgender youth except to affirm their delusions and make it easier to change their legal names. Daniel Degner of Wisconsin Family Action says it would bring trans ideology into the classroom.
It would require the state to fund transgender trainings with public school teachers so that public school teachers could affirm and promote the transgender ideology in the classrooms.
And remember all those twisted phrases the left uses to avoid saying mother or father? Yeah, those changes are in there too.
It even went so far to remove every reference to husband and wife and mother and father in our entire state law.
Wisconsin would have a lot of pregnant persons and other parents if the bills pass. Degner says Democrats in the Badger State continue to take the 20 side of every 80-20 issue.
Our polling has shown very strongly that the public is on our side on these transgender issues, that they affirm biological gender at almost 80 to 20%.
He says the good news is the bills will not pass in the Republican legislature. They are, however, a promise and a threat.
These bills, thankfully, are dead on arrival. They will not go anywhere because we have a Republican majority in our state legislature. However, Democrats are sending a message with these bills and saying, hey, if you can vote for Democrats in 2026, here's what we will do in Wisconsin.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pete.
The political climate in America has changed. We've been given a reprieve, and we have to work together to take advantage of that momentum and effect even more cultural and spiritual change. We can rebuild America. The American Family Association is working to do just that, and when you join with your support, it helps maximize the impact. As our thanks, we'll give you a DVD of biblical financial advice from Rob West called Biblical Stewardship. Please visit afa.net and get started today.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues. That's the name of this program here on the American Family Radio Network for this Tuesday, June the 3rd, 2025. Thanks for listening to AFR. Joining me in studio is Wesley Wildmon. Good morning, Wesley.
Good morning, and glad to be back on Today's Issues.
Glad to have you back.
Was off for a couple weeks, had some work travel, then had some vacation travel, and now back to real life.
Yes, back to the real world.
Real world, yep.
Chris Woodward. Good morning, Brother Chris.
Good morning.
And Ray Pritchard. Good morning, Ray.
Hey, good morning, Tim. How you doing today?
Doing well. Good to talk to you again. You're busy with your summer travel, some?
We've been out and about. We were in Florida last week and home for a very few days, and then it really starts next week up to Chicago, then to Oregon, and then back here. It's just this summer has us going from coast to coast. So I'm glad to be able to drop in and be with you guys today.
Now, for those who don't know, your ministry, Keep Believing, that's the name of it, Keep Believing. And you can check Ray out at keepbelieving.com. But Ray travels the country teaching the scripture at various summer camps. So you do 2 or 3 of them.
This summer I'm doing 5, which is a little much. We start in Oregon and be there in about a week and a half, and then in July we're going to be in upstate New York, and then in New Jersey, and then back home, and then up to Maine almost to Canada, then back home, and then back to New Jersey again. So basically this summer it's the West Coast and up in the Northeast.
Hey, you did better than I do. I've got a similar type schedule, but at least you knew where you were going. I don't know if it's a personality thing, but I don't look until the day before. I know I'm going somewhere.
Right.
But don't ask me a question. I look at everything the day before, and I have my moment where I just soak it all up and I learn everything. But wow, that was impressive, Ray. You want to do that one more time for us?
I don't think I could, Wesley.
Hey, I was going to ask you a serious question. So, obviously, we know you travel. Are any of these places new places, or are these returning places?
The first 4 are places I've been for: Cannon Beach, Word of Life, America's Keswick, and Living Waters up in Maine. But for the first time ever in the summer, I'm going to a place, Wesley, on the New Jersey Atlantic seashore, a place called Harvey Cedars Bible Conference. Okay. Old Bible conference, been around, I guess, about 90 years, and I have never been there to do a week of summer Bible conference, and I'm showing you with my hand here.
Yeah. You're watching.
It's right on the Atlantic. It's what you think. Harvey Cedars is right on the Atlantic Ocean there.
Wonderful. Let me add this quick plug too, and then I'll pass it over to Dad. Years ago, way before I was even, they're talking about high school days, middle school and high school days, before I even met Ray personally, or even went through college and came here. Keep Believing Ministries had a major impact on my life for many, many years early on, primarily because of their apologetic material that Ray offers. And so I encourage those that have young high school, college students that are, kind of questioning things, trying to figure some things out, trying to grow and their maturity and their depth of the scriptures. Ray's ministry and the website of being able to engage that age group is phenomenal. So go check out keepbelieving.com. Tons of materials you can go back for. You can archive probably a decade's worth of materials, right?
Oh, at least that much, and some of it may go back a couple of decades. So, Wesley, thank you so much.
Amen.
Appreciate it. And, yeah, folks, come see us at keepbelieving.com.
Keepbelieving.com. Dr. Frank Turek will be on the way in just a few moments. Frank usually doesn't have much to say or offer to the program.
But we got to have him on.
But we got to have. We'll see what he does today. But he'll be on with us in just a few minutes on the program. We look forward to talking to him. What's leading the news, Chris?
Well, Canadian wildfire smoke continues to pose a threat to several U.S. states, those states including Michigan and Minnesota. For people not aware of this, massive wildfires from British Columbia through Alberta and Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, thousands of acres are on fire, and that continues to pose an air quality alert, again, for people in states like Michigan and Minnesota. I've got a little bit of audio from Fox weather meteorologist Adam Klotz talking about the severity of the situation. Clip 1.
I mean, the air quality is certainly bad in that region. It's actually spilling in the United States. If you guys remember, 2 years ago, it was June 7th, so almost exactly now when all of that smoke funneled into New York City. That was 5 million acres burned. We're looking at close to 5 million acres burnt here, but this obviously much further off towards the west. As Todd was kind of mentioning, the air quality as a result is really plummeting, and it's beginning to seep not only across Canada, but down into some of these areas across the United States.
Meanwhile, parts of South Carolina today are experiencing a separate but related threat. High ozone pollution levels worsened by weekend smoke interaction. So Michigan, Minnesota, South Carolina, your air quality is probably not going to be the best today.
I just know that I had PTSD when I read a headline that said, the government regulating you to stay inside. Then I had to read the story. Not again. I had to read the story. The headline alone, I PTSD, but I understand what they're doing. They're trying to look after. I get you.
Right.
It took me a minute.
Ray, I guess you're not nothing affecting the Kansas City region, right?
Well, we've got Noah's flood on the way here.
Okay.
There's smoke and haze everywhere else, and we are in the. Sometimes I tell you, Tim, I'll give you tea time, but it's all underwater this morning.
Well, have you talked to your sons up in you got one son living in Montana, right?
One in Montana, and they've been hit with crazy weather dropping down from Canada, and
with the
also
smoke
the haze.
too?
Yes, the haze and the smoke, the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I know that South Carolina, they've had the forest fires going on for weeks.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Well, I was on vacation, too. I'm unplugged.
Right. I know. And so, one of the websites I read is Daily Mail usually, and they're a news site, but they're also sensationalist with their words that they use. Everything is amazing or tragic or horrific, or they got some adjective to get you to, it's clickbait, right?
Yeah.
So, but they were talking about the Saharan desert air, dust coming over here.
Okay.
To cross the ocean, going to impact some states here, and then they talk about then these wildfires.
One other weather story today. This is from the Weather Channel. Hurricane season obviously began on June 1st, and the National Hurricane Center is already tracking something they say we need to watch off the southeast coast. If you're east of Florida on up through the Carolinas, you may be getting some sort of tropical disturbance here in the coming days.
Okay. Well, listen, we got enough problems in this country. We don't need
natural ones.
We don't need to start thinking ahead about problems we might have, right, Chris?
Oh, yes. Well, listen, if we ran our lives worried about something, we'd never get anything done.
Every year a Republican is in the White House is when they warn against major hurricane season.
Yes,
because of global climate change caused by Republicans.
This is because Donald Trump and the big beautiful bill
are causing the climate to warm, which causes major hurricanes. It's just like, and then when the Democrats get into office, then they say, like Biden went to when Biden was in office, he went down to Kentucky.
Oh yeah,
for the tornado.
The tornado. Help me out here. We have a lot of listeners there. I've lost my
Talk about the name of the. Are you looking for the name?
Town.
The town.
The town that was.
We'll get the town. I thought you were thinking about the tornado.
It was.
Wait for it.
No, it was a town in Kentucky that was almost destroyed.
Mayfield.
Mayfield, yeah, Mayfield, and Biden said this is because of climate change.
Says the guy who flew in a giant airplane to get there.
Right.
Duly noted. But I'm going like they're acting like tornadoes have never happened in America before. You know. But it was they just politically exploiting it to try to make people believe that, quote, the carbon.
And they don't waste time either.
No, they
just like they don't do with the mass shooting or
right.
They don't waste time.
They place blame.
Yep.
All right, you're listening to today's issues on American Family Radio. We're joined now by Dr. Frank Turek, host of I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, heard Saturday at 9 a.m. Central Time. And Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. Central Time, right here on American Family Radio. Good morning, Brother Frank.
The climate's going to be just fine, ladies and gentlemen, because Jesus is later going to burn the whole thing up.
Carbon. He doesn't need a carbon footprint.
That's global warming.
Oh, okay. Is that right? Okay. When is that?
That's the best way to start your message, right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's going to burn it up and start over.
Yeah.
When is that going to happen?
Yeah.
No one knows the time nor the hour, the day, nor the season.
Burn the whole thing up and start over.
That's right. We just always have to be ready. He could come at any minute.
Well, that's true. No, what we're joking around here about, but that's true. What you just said is true. Jesus will return again to earth. Hey, I want to ask you, Frank, we were talking about a clip that somebody sent me this morning from Twitter. It's got to be real, right? Anyway, it was about a gentleman in England, Great Britain, N.T. Wright.
Yes.
He's a well-known, what is he, a well-known what?
He's a well-known biblical scholar who wrote actually a very good book on the resurrection in 2003 called The Resurrection of the Son of God. It's one of the better books on the resurrection out there.
Okay. Well, my question, the tweet that was sent to me, and I haven't watched the whole thing, so but all it says that this gentleman, N.T. Wright, who you just said, says that you don't have to believe in the bodily resurrection of Christ to be a Christian. Now, do you have to believe?
Well, first of all, he didn't actually say that.
Okay, that's a good point to make.
He didn't say that. Okay. He said a friend of his, who also was a scholar, Marcus Borg, more on the liberal side, didn't believe in it.
Okay.
But he in other ways seemed to be following Jesus, and what N.T. Wright was trying to say is he is a muddled Christian. A muddled Christian.
Okay.
And
so this is one of those, a friend of a friend.
Yeah, this is a good point to make. I didn't send this to but like 4 or 5 people, including I think Frank. I sent this to you, right?
Yeah,
Frank?
I saw it. Yeah.
Okay, so it was a tweet, and of course on the internet, what's the old saying about a lie travels around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on?
That's right.
So he didn't actually say that. This gentleman, N.T. Wright, that a lot of people are familiar with. But here's the question I have, the broader question I have related to
this.
The
other guy did, though, right?
Yeah, his friend. N.T. Wright's friend that he was referring to.
Marcus Borg, yeah. Another scholar who has passed on, yes.
Yes. So he can't defend himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
People get attacked after they die, and then they can't defend themselves. But he did say what he said, according to N.T. Wright. But the broader question I have is, Frank, are there? Can you name 3 or 4 essentials? I know this is basic and elementary, and people are going, "Why are you asking this question?" We all know the answer to it. But there's a reason why we have creeds.
Yes.
And there's a reason why we have these things we believe. There's a reason that God put the 10 Commandments on tablets that would be read forevermore. I mean, are there essentials that you have to believe in order to be a Christian?
Yes, there are. And I know some people will get annoyed over this. And what the analogy I give people when they say, well, who made you the boss of what Christianity is and isn't,
Right.
I simply ask people this question. Let's suppose we were all with Moses at the base of Mount Sinai when he came down with the 10 Commandments. And he said, here are the 10 Commandments that Yahweh has given us. And we all look at Moses and we say, Moses, we don't like those 10. We have our own 10. Should we call ourselves followers of Yahweh?
Is that a rhetorical question, or should we?
No, really, should we?
No.
No,
of course not. We're not agreeing with Yahweh. So why would we call us followers of Yahweh, right? When we look at Christianity, we have certain doctrinal statements that define what the faith is. Without those statements, without those truths, then Christianity could be atheism, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you've got to in some way differentiate what you believe about God, what you believe about yourself, what you believe about Jesus, what you believe about the resurrection, what you believe about salvation, what you believe about heaven and hell and all these things. In fact, it's been put this way. You notice how you hear people saying, well, religions all teach basically the same thing. They teach you just ought to love one another. That's what people will say. And the response to that is, first of all, that's not true. Some religions don't teach you ought to love one another. In fact, that's the big reason we have all this violence in the Middle East, right? They don't teach you ought to love one another. But let's say for the sake of argument they did. What we could say is, yeah, all religions teach basically you ought to love one another. They only differ on the nature of man, the nature of God, sin, salvation, heaven, hell, and creation. Outside of that, they're exactly the same, right? I mean, the truth is, major world religions are only superficially the same and essentially different. They are not essentially the same and superficially different. And of course, Christianity is centered around the fact that God himself comes to earth, lives the perfect life in our place, allows the creatures that rebelled against him to torture and kill him. So since he is infinitely just, he could take our punishment upon himself and then give us his righteousness if we trust in him. Christianity is a completely 100% grace religion, unlike any other worldview. And it's built on an historical fact that Jesus came to earth, lived the perfect life in our place, died, rose again to prove he was God, that he had a divine nature and a human nature, and by trusting in him, we're not only forgiven, but we're given his righteousness. That's what it's essentially all about. And for someone to come along and say, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't believe Jesus was God, which Marcus Borg didn't believe, and that's the friend of N.T. Wright, and to say that Jesus didn't rise from the dead. He may have risen spiritually, but not physically. This is not someone that is claiming to adhere to some of the fundamental doctrines of Christianity. If you miss the resurrection, you miss everything.
Okay, so this is Wesley here. So there's obviously things in the scripture that you can extrapolate, and then there's some that are very specific.
By the way, I'm impressed with the word extrapolate.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. I was a B plus in English.
Yeah, well, and you hung around me a lot.
That's right. That helps. That kind of rubs off.
Some influence there.
Go
ahead and extrapolate.
I was extrapolate. Then you got peripheral and core issues is another way of saying it. So this is where I've found over the years is that this is how you end up with different denominations. Obviously, not speaking in anything too smart there, but so where would, and again, even within this conversation, you're going to get divisions among Christians. But where would you personally?
You're not going to get into like tongues and role of women in the church, and
no. I'm going to ask Frank.
Okay, good.
What are the core essentials to the Christian faith?
Okay, go.
Well, the core essentials of the Christian faith is there is a God. You are not him. That this God came to earth, as I mentioned earlier, in human form, died, rose again to prove he was God, and by trusting in him, you're not only forgiven, but you're given his righteousness. So we're believing in God. We're believing that Jesus is also God. He's the second person of the Trinity. We're believing that we're sinners and we can't save ourselves, and by trusting in him, we're forgiven and given his righteousness. And the fact that Jesus rose from the dead confirms that he was God and confirms our ultimate state. And if you look at, say, the Nicene Creed, there's one God, the Father Almighty. Jesus Christ is the only begotten Son of God. He was begotten, not made. He's co-equal with the Father. There's the Holy Spirit, who is the Lord, the giver of life. There's one holy and universal church. I know the word Catholic is there, but people get confused. It doesn't mean Roman Catholic. It means universal church. And there's a resurrection of the dead. There's a life of the world to come. And there's going to be a judgment. These are all essentials of the faith. As Tim was mentioning earlier, there are secondary issues like end times. When is that going to happen? How is it going to happen? There's baptism. Is it, immersion or sprinkling? Is it... Do you believe in Calvinism or Arminianism or Molinism? Do you believe in women pastors and all the? You can argue over all those things. They're secondary issues compared to the essentials. And Paul says this in Romans 10: if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved.
Right?
Okay. Okay, Frank, it's amazing. I'm glad that you brought this up, Romans 10, because I opened it. I've got it open here on YouVersion because it's such a great point. Believe, confess with your mouth, Jesus is Lord. And then it says, believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead. So I listened to that same clip you listened to where N.T. Wright was talking about his friend Marcus Borg and, a muddled Christian and all of that. And N.T. Wright essentially says that Marcus Borg doesn't believe in the physical resurrection. He believes that Jesus was raised spiritually. I don't even know what that means because in Romans 10:9, God raised him, Jesus, the man who died in the body, raised him. To me, it has to mean raised in the body from the dead. So what does it mean? What could it possibly mean, Frank, to be raised in the spirit but not in the flesh?
Well, it could mean that, he just his spirit went to be with the Father, similar to what happens to us now when we die, absent from the body, present with the Lord, and our bodies and our spirits will be reunited at a future period. But there's no way of proving that empirically. You see, the apostles took the hard way to show that Christianity is true. They could have said, he's resurrected in our hearts, when his body is still in the tomb. How can you prove that, right? But when he walks out of the tomb and the tomb remains empty, and the Jews and the Romans would have loved to have squashed Christianity by taking the body out of the tomb, parading it around the city and saying, stop all this nonsense talk about the resurrection. Here's his body. He's dead. They didn't do that. They said he physically rose from the dead. That's an empirical claim that can be verified. It's not just, I have this sense he's gone to be with the Father while his body rots in the tomb. They took the hard way. Also, I think this shows that ultimately God wins. If Satan had somehow won in the physical world, meaning that our bodies were never resurrected, that wouldn't mean that God had power over Satan to resurrect the body, to resurrect us ultimately. The resurrection of Christ and a remade heavens and earth shows that God ultimately wins in this physical creation. It's not just a spiritual resurrection, it's a physical resurrection.
I'm reading through like the Romans and the Corinthians, 1st, 2nd Corinthians, and so forth. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, everybody knows who that is if you're familiar with the Bible. It's like I'm exaggerating here, but it's like once a chapter, he goes, he basically saying, I'm talking about a man who was raised from the dead. Okay?
Who he saw.
He rose up from the dead. Okay? So our faith is in somebody who conquered sin and physical death. And so it's just over and over and over and over and over again. There's no, like you're saying, there's no...
you're saying the Bible claims that he physically resurrected. It didn't leave for ambiguity.
There's no nuance or there's no metaphoric translation or, it's hey, Jesus was physically dead and he rose up from the dead and people saw him. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm impressed you used the word nuance.
Well, I can spell it too.
I'm going to stow that in my vocabulary.
I can spell it.
Hey, Wesley, we got to talk about next week in Tupelo.
Yes, we do.
Is that sold out?
It's sold out. Activate Summit next week, so we really don't want to tell people they can't.
Oh, all right.
Hey, on a serious note, you've got somewhere you're going to be on June 5th. Tell us quickly.
On June 5th, I'm going to be at a summit out in Colorado, but that's probably sold out too, so we can't tell people about that either.
So what about your program?
Right.
Oh, well, I got a program coming up on the 6th and 7th. Well, it's going to be this weekend, as you know, 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern, right there.
On American Family Radio
Network.
Thanks, Frank.
All right, see you guys.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
Emmanuel Dannon didn't live very long, but he lived well what few years he did live. He was without parents when he was 4 years old and was placed in the Milwaukee Poorhouse. That's what they called it in those days. He spent his next 3 years in that institution. Then Mr. and Mrs. Samuel Norton adopted Emmanuel. The Nortons also adopted a girl at the same time they adopted Emmanuel, 2 years older than he. The two went to live with the Nortons on the farm in Marquette County. Emmanuel had been living with the Nortons for about a year when Mr. Norton, whom he called Paul, told the lad of 8 to tell a lie about something. The young boy answered back, "Paul, I don't lie." Steadfastly refusing to tell the lie that his adopted parent wanted told, Norton took Emmanuel and tied his wrist to a rafter until only his toes touched the floor. For the next 2 hours, Norton flogged the boy with switches, while the lad kept refusing to tell the lie. When the lad was at last let down, he turned to Norton and said, "Paul, I'm so cold." That night, the older girl later testified in court, Emmanuel Dannon died at the age of 8. He died believing it was wrong to tell a lie. Children shame us at times. Their beauty sometimes brings to light the ugliness of some of we adults. Studying human nature, one is not surprised that the carpenter took a little child, set him in the midst of the crowd, and told them that to enter the kingdom of heaven, they would have to become like that child. I have been shamed and humbled many times by the honesty and humility of children. We adults have many prejudices and hatreds which we have ingrained in us over a period of many years. Children are free of this. I heard a fellow say once that the races should be separated among the little children because they don't know the difference. Well, like the song says, you have to be taught to hate. Maybe one day adults will go on believing some of those great doctrines which they believed as children. Freedom, brotherhood, justice, love, helpfulness, kindness, appreciation, and all the others. Our world needs them. It needs them far more than it needs more of the hatred and selfishness and ugliness of many of our adults. One of the best investments we as adults can make in life is the shaping of a young mind toward that which is true in life. Those parents and teachers and friends who spend their time teaching a child to love and appreciate and be grateful do far more in preventing the destruction of the world than all the ruling bodies in the world. Emmanuel Dannon was a great man, even if he was just 8 years old. He stayed true to the highest he knew. After he died, a fund was begun to erect a monument to the boy who would not tell a lie. A total of $1,099 was given, but the treasurer stole every penny of it. That was back in 1851. Over 100 years later, in 1954, funds were given and a monument was erected in Emmanuel Dannon's honor. The Nazarene once said, "Happy are those who suffer persecution because they do what God requires. The kingdom of heaven belongs to them." I believe I know where Emmanuel lives now, in that place which belongs to him.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
In him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. Ephesians 1:11.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Wesley, Chris, and Ray. And we thank you for listening to AFR. Chris, what's the next story?
All right. A 45-year-old illegal alien from Egypt has been charged with a hate crime for that firebomb attack on a group of pro-Israel supporters over the weekend. Firebomb attack on a group of pro-Israel supporters in Boulder, Colorado, who were calling attention to the Israeli hostages still in Hamas captivity. I bring this in because this morning, border czar Tom Homan went on Fox and blaming the Biden administration for, among other things, allowing so many migrants here in the country. Clip 2.
They created the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. Not only did 2 million known gotaways, 2 million people cross the border, we don't know who they are, where they came from, we don't know where they are now. On top of that, even through the legal process, the Biden administration were bringing people unvetted, handing out work visas like they're candy, while they sat here and planned something bad. We are going to be dealing with this for the next 10 years because of the chaos they created in 4 years. 2 million people paid more to get away. They didn't want to be vetted. They didn't want to be fingerprinted. Why? It should have scared every American what the Biden administration did. This 2 million known gotaways scares me. So I'm convinced something's coming unless we can find them.
Okay, so just for a second. I questioned the use of the term firebomb because I hadn't heard that before. It was a flamethrower.
Well, he had Molotov cocktails as well.
Cocktails.
Are they called firebombs? Okay.
I understood what he meant when he said that.
Okay, I was when you say bombs to me, I'm thinking Oklahoma City.
No,
and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's a small, but it's very deadly. Anyway, he threw 2 or 3 of those into this small crowd who were only there in Colorado, the Boulder area, to have a rally in support of the hostages in Israel. And this guy, he came to America from Egypt, and he had overstayed his work visa.
Yes.
Is that what it was?
Which means he was here illegally.
Yes. So, and then he went crazy here on whenever it was Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and tried to kill all those people, and with a flamethrower too. But he's been. The point the gentleman right there, Tom Homan, the border czar, basically is making, Ray, and we talked about this a lot, and this was a big issue in the election, and I know the reason why Biden and the Democrats did this, but I don't think that by this I mean letting. Some say 15 million people flood into our country.
Try to avoid some say. I think it's help when you say.
Well,
some say.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
I'm talking about, but 15 million people, whatever it was. I mean, we remember those first 3 years.
There are reports that it's up to 18 million. I mean, anywhere, they're over 10. Okay.
Yeah, million people into our country that we didn't know who they were. They just flooded in here because Biden, after he took office and Trump left, he said, I'm getting rid of all Trump's restrictions against people coming into their country. I think just to spite Trump, Ray. And also I think that Biden and the Democrats were hoping, hey, we get these millions of people here, let them into our country illegally, and then they become lifelong Democrats once we get them registered to vote.
Now, first, you let them in. Second, you get them registered. Third, they vote Democrat every single election, and the Republican Party basically becomes a permanent minority party, and the Dems are in the White House forever. It was a pretty good strategy in this sense. Millions of people got in illegally.
Right.
And you can say, well, did they want it to be that way? Yes, some of them. Some of the Democrats clearly wanted it to be that way. And I think Tom Homan was simply pointing out, we don't know who these people were. We don't know where they are now. And some of them clearly are bad actors set on doing terrible things inside our country. We don't even have a way of tracking them down.
They call them gotaways.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was going to say we're probably going to hear more about what happened in Boulder this month as the Senate prepares to vote on the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. And I say that because I've got a soundbite here of Senator Ted Cruz, who says the Big Beautiful Bill, or BBB, will prevent crimes like what we saw in Boulder from happening again. Clip 4.
We're going to provide funding to build the wall, to hire more agents and ICE agents in detention facilities. But the Democrats continue just to embrace open borders. And apparently what they think America needs is more illegal immigrants, more gang members, more murderers, rapists, and more terrorists like this lunatic in Boulder. This guy was a lunatic who was at a pro-Israel protest, elderly Jewish people, including a Holocaust survivor there, calling for the release of hostages taken on October 7th. And this guy screams "Free Palestine" and lights them on fire.
Based on that, I think Senator Cruz is a yes on the Big Beautiful Bill.
Well, that's sort of changing subjects, but he's relating the two.
Yeah,
is Ted Cruz there? I don't know what'll happen with that Big Beautiful Bill when it gets through in the Senate. They got to negotiate it in the House again with the House, and who knows what's going to happen.
One other point I want to make on this story before we move on, and I wanted to wait to the end. I didn't want to take away from the bigger points here, but a smaller point here that should be emphasized is that this guy was also denied a firearm because of the process that works that we have in place. Did you know that? So
you're talking about the guy in Boulder, Colorado, the Egyptian guy.
So Ahmadi, Ahmad Somali,
who tried to kill all the people.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So he went to register for a gun and buy a gun legally, and our process worked. It denied him the right to purchase a firearm and there's many reasons why you get denied. It's not just one. So the system worked when it's used properly. And so I just want to emphasize that when we come back around, if he had to have used a firearm, he would have had to have gotten it illegally.
Every time these things.
So we don't need more gun laws because gun laws worked if it's used properly. Anyways.
Right. So we don't. This is going to happen more and more. I'm talking about these illegal immigrants. Some of them gang members, cartel members, and are just people committing crimes. As it happens more, you have to remember who let all these people in.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, who let all these people in. All right, next story, Chris.
All right, Oregon high school senior Alexa Anderson garnered national attention over the weekend when she refused to share the high jump medal podium with a male at a state track and field championship meet for females. It was in the state of Oregon. Now, viral footage of Anderson and fellow female athlete Reese Eckerd stepping down from the podium also showed an official gesturing for them to step to the side. Anderson, I have a clip from her, alleges the official ordered her and Eckerd, the other female athlete, to get out of the photo if they were not going to stand on the podium with the male who says he is a she. I've got audio from Alexa herself last night on Laura Ingram's show, clip 5.
It's unfair because biological males and biological females compete at such different levels that allowing a biological male into our competition is taking up space and opportunity from all these hardworking women. The girl in 9th who should have been in 8th and had that podium spot had that taken away from her, as well as many others. We stepped off the podium in protest, and as you can see in the video, an official kind of told us, hey, go over there. If you're not going to participate, get out of the photos.
You couldn't even have your moment. That wasn't allowed. You had to stand forward, not your back to it.
Yes, they asked us to move away from the medal stand. So when they took the photos, we weren't even in it at all.
Now, I got to tell you, we've talked about this pretty much all year. Males and female sports has been a big issue on this topic. And even though President Trump signed that executive order saying no more males and female sports, Oregon, California, Maine, if you're a blue state, pretty much your state's probably talking about it if it's not already thumbing the nose at Trump.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with the money because President Trump is committed to cutting off the some of the federal tax dollars that go for schools
Mm-hmm.
To these states that that are allowing boys to defeat girls
right
in competition.
And interestingly enough, that tactic, that threat of we're going to cut your funding, is something that even Joe Biden threw out there when he tried to change Title IX and make schools force.
Yeah.
By force, he was trying to make males and females. Sports.
I feel bad for people who live in these deep blue states in particular, Ray, because
the ones that don't want to be there, that are trapped.
Yeah,
Right.
they're trapped for their job or whatever, because this movement's just being jammed down their throats.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Right.
I got a lot of friends in Oregon. I'm going to be out there in a couple of weeks. We said that earlier. I mean, there's a strong evangelical. It's a minority, clearly, in Oregon, but there's a strong evangelical community. What do you do if you've got daughters and they love track?
Right.
They love track and field, and they're
Right.
good in athletics. And what are you going to do when suddenly one of these guys who wants to pretend to be a girl, and they allow him to be in the high jump, or they allow him to be in the 100 meters or whatever it is, and your daughter loses the chance to win because you're racing against a guy who's pretending to be a girl? That puts you in an awful situation. Only thing I don't really have any answers for that, except God bless these young women who had the courage.
I will say this about
step off the podium.
Yes, absolutely, good for them because they're not participating in this sham that's going on. But another thing is, I was on vacation last week, and we were on the Florida coast on the beach, and I was visiting with some people, and there were another couple who had moved to the Nashville area, and this is not just true of the Nashville area, but other parts of the country, that had left California.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "Listen, I said, why'd you leave?" Well, they're just, the liberal politics is getting, and not only from social issues, but also from taxation and regulation and
regulation of the farmers.
Yes, and the businesses, and then the homelessness problem. I mean,
and it's starting to creep outside the city a lot more.
Quality of life,
is
not like it used to be in the golden age of California.
Let me do this real quick. I want to emphasize and praise these two girls one more time, and then make a comment. You got Reese Eckerd, I think that's how you pronounce the name, Reese Eckerd from Sherwood High School, and Alexa Anderson from Tigard High School there in Oregon. Now, in addition to that, I want to point out they were two of there's 5 other women that had the opportunity to protest, and they didn't. There's 8 winners. They recognized 8 female athletes. One was a man. The other 7 were females, and they were 2 of them. So we need more
young ladies who are willing to stand up, like Riley Gaines.
That's right. That should have been 100%. And if I'm the father, or my wife was there, or the mother of the other 5, I'd have helped. I'd have walked out there with them and said, "Hey, we're gonna do this way," So they need some encouragement.
To add to our discussion here, I've got audio of Kim Herman. Now, Kim is an attorney with Southeastern Legal Foundation who said to us at AFN, listen, track and field, swimming, whatnot, it is just a game. But when it comes to things like high school sports, it matters that females are being forced to compete against males. Clip 6.
The reality is that in sports, there's winners and there's losers, right? We want our 5, 6, 7-year-olds to play the game, to learn how to play the game. But when you're talking about athletes at a high school level, you are talking about scholarships that are on the line. You are talking about whether or not some of these girls will have the opportunity to go to college on a scholarship. And those scholarships are based off of winning and losing and off of people's records. And so when boys compete in girls' sports and they take these championships, they are cheating. They're also taking away scholarship opportunities. And for many of these young women, it is the opportunity at all to go to college.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Thankfully, a lot of states have already taken red states in particular have taken they've made it clear through state legislation that only the boys will compete with boys and girls will compete with girls when it comes to athletics. I want to change the subject just a minute. Ray, do you know what's happened in the Ukrainian-Russian war in the last 48, 72 hours? It's pretty amazing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Would you explain it basically to our listeners?
As best I understand it, it's totally unexpected. A major drone attack from Ukraine deep into Russia. It's one thing to do a drone attack, Tim, 20 or 30 miles across the border. So they went much deeper into Russia, and they hit the Russian strategic nuclear assets. And everybody's asking the question, how did they do that? Where did they get that information? And behind that is the question, who else knew about it? Would the Ukraine have dared to do that without letting the White House know? Did the White House sign off on it tacitly, so to speak? I was reading an article a little while ago. The folks in the Kremlin are understandably furious because this is an attack at the very heart of the Russian nuclear arsenal. No one expected this. I would say, Tim, it's a major escalation in the war and the tension between Russia and Ukraine. And you kind of wonder now, Tim, if Russia's going to answer back on what they're going to do. I don't see this as moving the peace process forward. It seems like it's further apart now. And peace, any so-called peace agreement seems further away to me than it did 48 hours ago.
In addition to what you just described, there was a news story this morning. Crimea, for those who don't know, is used to be a part of the Ukraine, right?
Right.
The Ukraine, the country. And then when was it about? It was during the Obama administration. Was it 10 years ago or 12 years ago?
Moved on Crimea?
12
Yeah,
or
when
15?
Russia took it over.
Okay,
Russia, they want a Black Sea port in Crimea. I mean, that's the perfect.
2014.
Okay, 2014.
Yeah.
The Russian, with no resistance, took over Crimea. They basically took that from the Ukraine.
Sure.
And so it's a lot of people call it occupied Crimea because Russia occupies it. But Russia has been there with their troops and so forth. And Ukraine evidently used a drone to destroy a bridge.
Right.
And I read where it's the only bridge between Crimea and Ukraine. Is that what you read?
That's exactly right.
So let me just say this about, and I'm no expert whatsoever on geopolitical events in anywhere in the world, but just following this, I read about this, the Ukraine-Russia war. I keep up with it. I think now Ukraine is making a statement that they are in it for the long haul, longer than the 3 years, and they'll go down. They're in a blaze of glory if they have to, but they're not giving. I don't think maybe Zelensky and his team will decide to give up more land to Russia in this effort to end the war. I'm not saying that would be a bad thing, but I am saying with the strikes they've made in the last few days with this top secret, right out of Hollywood.
Right.
Attack deep inside Russia, which is shocking, with drones that destroyed big military.
Right.
What do you call them?
This whole thing about drone warfare has completely changed the nature of the battlefield. Tim, you've seen some of these. The drones can be used for micro hits.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen some of these videos
where
there are Russian soldiers sitting there and there's a drone buzzing around.
No question. Without drones, Russia would have already taken over.
Right.
Ukraine.
So sometimes you have these little tiny drones, but they can take out an individual soldier. But in this case, you have there's some kind of super secret technology that the rest of us don't know about that allowed the Ukrainian drones to get through Russian airspace and hit those strategic Russian air bases that I think the Russians never expected that to happen. So the whole military calculus on the battlefield has changed now.
I just don't think that President Trump's engaged in this anymore. I think he's dropped it. This is the sense I'm getting.
Or
he gave it his best shot. He gave it his best shot at getting the two sides to a peaceful solution, and it didn't work. And so he sort of washed his hands of it. Is that what you got kind of think?
Well, it does feel that way. I mean, he did say, right, and everybody understands Trump speaks in hyperbole. On the first day, in one day, I can solve the Ukrainian war with Russia in one day. And then he gave it his best shot. He intervened. We had the showdown with Zelensky, and then he basically called out Putin a week or two ago. He does have the feeling he's gone, look, I can't do anything to help you.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just going to have to work it out. It'll just have to be what it is. I just don't think – I think President Trump's
well, then let me ask you the question. If that's true, are the Russians just going to sit back and take this, or are they not going to retaliate?
That's scary.
It is scary.
It's a scary thought because retaliation up in the level of combat between the two would mean potentially using nuclear weapons.
Strategic or battlefield nuclear weapons.
And Kyiv, they already are bombing Kyiv some.
Sure.
Russia is, so that's the key being the major metropolitan area there in the major city in Ukraine. Have you had any contact at all with your folks over there in the Ukraine?
I mentioned last week that I was down in Florida. I mentioned earlier I was down in Florida last week and ran into completely, quote, providential chance, if you want to call it that, the leader of Word of Life's work in the Ukraine, and we talked for a little bit. It is shattering. That's the word that I would use. It is shattering what has happened to the Ukrainian people, and they have been pushed and pushed and pushed to the limit.
Right.
I think in poker terms, this doing this drone, this an amazing drone strike on the strategic basis, that's almost like standing up and pushing everything to the middle of the table and saying, okay, boys, we're going all in now.
I know, President Trump said Russia had all the cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a gambling metaphor, but he said that about.
Turns out Ukraine had a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say that makes me think they're not telling the White House everything.
Mm-hmm.
And from their point of view, I don't blame them because, and again, I'm not faulting President Trump. I'm not saying everything he's decided is right or wrong. I'm not making a value judgment on that. I'm just saying I do think he's underestimated the commitment of the Ukraine to fight back against Russia, and evidently their ability to do so.
Right.
Based on what's happened here in the last 3 or 4 days.
Well, you sort of wonder who gave them this technology. If it wasn't us, was it Germany? Was it one of the other European
France,
countries?
maybe.
France, yeah.
Who knows?
France is really good at getting involved in a conflict. Getting out of it is another historical conversation. Yeah. To your point about the Trump administration seemingly stepping back from that, there was a story to that effect yesterday from ABC News, which we all know is most likely against Trump. But they do say the Trump administration has stepped back from talks here. Marco Rubio has been involved in some things, but even he has not has been involved in recent days.
Yeah. Well, most of the world's wars have been over land. The other reasons, ideology, money,
resources,
retaliation for something, perceived wrongs, but probably a majority of the world's wars over history have been over land. People won't, and Russia's saying, Ukraine's a threat to them, and NATO's a threat to them, and of course, so Russia was the one, though. Russia was the country that started attacking first militarily.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
In this war. Yeah. So that is a fact. All right, we will return with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Pray for the Christian people Ray's talking about in the Ukraine. Well, pray for the Christian people in Russia, too.
Absolutely.
But they don't want to be at war either. But this has just been, you said shattering.
Shattering
to the people.
It was on his face as we talked last week.
You could
It's
see it.
been shattering.
Wow. Imagine your homeland being under attack and under siege for 2 or 3 years by a foreign enemy, and how you would, react to that. We'll be back with more of today's issues in a moment. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
How do you choose to stay informed? Sure, you can find all kinds of sources for information and commentary, but when you want them from a Christian perspective, turn to The Stand. Whether you choose to read the online blog or get the print version delivered to your mailbox, you can rest assured you'll receive factual news and biblically sound commentary. Find out more today at afa.net/The Stand.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. The manhunt continues for 2 jail escapees in New Orleans, with one fugitive now claiming his innocence on social media. Nate Foy has the latest.
Fugitive Antoine Massey, charged with rape and kidnapping, is apparently speaking out online, claiming that he's a victim and not a criminal.
Asking for help from the world, from Meek Mills, Lil Wayne, Young Boy, Donald Trump. I'm asking for these people. I couldn't even get a lawyer. I couldn't even afford a lawyer to prove my innocence.
Massey and 9 other inmates escaped the Orleans Parish Jail. 14 people face charges for helping them, including jail maintenance worker Sterling Williams, who told investigators he only cooperated after being threatened.
The man who firebombed a silent march in support of Israeli hostages is now facing a slew of charges, including 6 counts of attempted murder. Alicia Cunha has more from Boulder, Colorado.
The acting U.S. attorney here in Colorado says when investigators interviewed Mohammed Solomon, he told them he wanted all of the victims to die and that he would do it all over again. He made his first court appearance in Boulder late yesterday. He faces a slew of state charges, which include 16 counts for attempted murder and additional charges for use of an incendiary device. He also faces a federal hate crime charge, and more could be coming. Court documents show Solomon, who is from Egypt, told authorities after his arrest when he couldn't get the gun, he researched on YouTube how to make a Molotov cocktail and admitted to throwing 2 of them at the group in Boulder.
A Colorado congressman says, as Americans, we must stand with our Jewish community in the wake of Sunday's terrorist attack on a pro-Israel group in Boulder, Colorado. Chad Groening has more.
45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Solomon, an illegal alien from Egypt, confessed to police that he'd been planning the attack for more than a year and would do it again. He used a makeshift flamethrower and Molotov cocktails to attack a pro-Israel group, which was concluding their weekly demonstration aimed at drawing attention to the hostages still being held by Hamas terrorists in Gaza. 8 people were wounded in the attack, including an 88-year-old survivor of the Holocaust. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a statement that Solomon will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Republican Congressman Jeff Crank represents a Colorado congressional district adjacent to Boulder.
We're unfortunately seeing more of this sort of anti-Semitic hatred, exported terror into the United States. Obviously, we've seen a couple of instances of it in the last couple of weeks. I think we've got to be very vigilant to stop it and to make sure that whoever does this pays a terrible price for it.
Crank says the Biden loose border policy of the past 4 years has allowed people in the country who are waiting to do these kinds of acts of terror.
As Americans, we've got to be ready, and as a government, we've got to do everything we can to stop future attacks like this. But we've also got to make sure that we stand with our Jewish community and make sure that they understand that this anti-Semitic effort on the part of hate won't stand.
I'm Chad Groening.
The White House has opened an investigation into the competency of former President Biden during his final days in office and the actions that he took before he left. Peter Ducey has more from the White House.
That Hunter Biden pardon, among others, may have been more than just a broken promise not to pardon the president's son. It may have been fraudulent, according to officials here who want to know if President Biden was cognitively impaired to the point that he could not legitimately execute the duties of his office, including pardons for his sister Valerie, his brother Frank, his brother James, his wife Sarah, also for Trump critics like Mark Milley, Tony Fauci, and Liz Cheney. According to Reuters today, Ed Martin, the Justice Department's pardon attorney, wrote in an email seen by Reuters that the investigation involves whether Biden was competent and whether others were taking advantage of him through use of auto pen or other means.
U.S. job openings rose unexpectedly in April, showing that the labor market remains resilient in the face of uncertainty arising from President Donald Trump's trade wars. The Labor Department reported today that employers posted 7.4 million job vacancies in April, up from 7.2 million in March. Economists had expected openings to drift down to 7.1 million. More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
This weekend on The Stand Radio, Dr. John Oswalt will be with us to talk about the Day of Pentecost, the work of the Holy Spirit, and living the Spirit-filled life.
Too often we say, oh, what's the mark of the Holy Spirit? Oh, it's a gift. I want to say, no. It's the presence of the fruits of the Spirit that are the proof of His presence.
The Stand Radio, Saturdays at 4 and Sundays at 8 p.m. Central on AFR.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. I'm Tim with Wesley and Ray, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
How are you doing?
I'm well.
Yeah. Good. Of course, I ask you that every day, and
every day I'm well.
One day you're going to say, "I need help." Do you have a few moments?
I'm depressed. And,
no, just keep no. I don't want to hear that. Just say I'm well, even if you're not.
Funny. That's the human. What we're supposed to do.
Isn't that what we do, Ray? We ask people how they're doing.
Right.
I don't really care.
I don't really care for the
It's
answer.
disingenuous at best. No, I do, but I don't have time to listen to your problems. Why? Because I have my own.
That's right. That's right.
Which I also don't want to talk about.
I told somebody the other day he was a therapist or a counselor or something like that. And I said, "How do you do that?" Because, even pastors, right? You know this, and you're.
Yes, I do know this. Believe me, I do.
Okay, so they call you or come to your office and want you to solve or listen to them. And I'm not saying people shouldn't seek counsel from spiritual leaders like their pastor, but you're going like, next time I see you in the grocery store aisle, I'm going the other way.
That's right. That's right. I've done that.
Well,
sometimes you've listened all you can listen.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Talked all you can talk. You got nothing else to say.
Nothing else to say.
I'm gonna go look at the cucumbers for
right,
a while.
Right.
I got nothing to add here.
If I see my parishioner on the cereal aisle,
that's right.
I'm going to the cucumber fresh vegetable aisle, and
that's right.
Put my hoodie on.
But sometimes you have done just talked out.
Have you ever been like at a store? I don't know if do you cook at home, Ray?
Very rarely.
Or your wife? Do you guys cook?
All the time,
okay.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever used any recipe that uses cooking wine or something like that, but have you ever been in the grocery store with like a bottle of wine in your hand that you can use to cook with, and your parishioner comes up to you and says, "Hello, Pastor Ray."
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I have several stories I could tell about that. Yes,
it's for cooking purposes only.
Yes, that's
Baptist.
Right. And the alcohol burns off, supposedly.
That's right. But I sure do love the dish.
Oh man. So, all right. So what's frustrating, and of course we're all human, guilty of bad habits and sins sometimes. So I would just want to say this, but when you counsel somebody about a problem,
right,
and then they don't do what you say you need to do. It's like, why did you ever come to me in the first place? Right. And then they want to come back 3 months later and say you're back at the same place and go, well, did you do what you need to do.
Right.
No, I didn't do that. Well, you want to like go, well, I don't have anything else to say. You know what I'm saying?
It'd be a pretty short session.
Go ahead.
That's right. Well, or they have a marital problem that's been 10 years building, but they come to see you and they want you to solve it in 15 minutes.
Right. I know.
It can be difficult.
I know. All right. So I got to ask you guys this. Okay. And I'm about to warn our listeners. We're going to get into crazy talk.
Oh, never done that before.
Okay.
We're good at this.
And
we're gifted.
This is for entertainment purposes only. Okay.
It's a fair warning.
All right. So I was reading the New York Times.
So all literalists need to.
Yeah. Well, get ready. This is the New York Times, so consider the source. But this is, I think, is legit what this gentleman's saying. He's a columnist for the New York Times. I saw this. I'm just going to read the story out loud to you, and then you'll know why I'm saying crazy talk. But I want your reaction to it. This article, June 1, 2025, on the New York Times, says this: President Trump shared an outlandish conspiracy theory on social media on this past Saturday night, saying former President Joseph R. Biden had been, quote, executed in 2020, end quote, and replaced by a robotic clone. The latest example, this columnist says, of the president amplifying dark, false material to his millions of followers. I'll read one more paragraph. Mr. Trump reposted a fringe rant that another user had made on the president's social media platform, Truth Social. That's what Trump posted on. Just after 10 p.m. on Saturday, the White House did not respond to requests for comment on the post about Mr. Biden, whom Trump has targeted for criticism almost daily since the start of his second term. So, with President Trump, the advantage that he has is you don't know sometimes whether he's serious or not.
That's a huge advantage.
That is a great advantage in the world of politics, especially because if he posts something like this, Ray, where he says that this idea that Joe Biden was executed in 2020 is basically a robot, basically a robot. But that's on Trump's own. But that's till 10 p.m. on Saturday night. So if you post that, you go, well, he's trolling people. You know, he's just wanting to get a reaction out of the New York Times.
And he got it.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
All right. So, Steve, was Joe Biden executed in 2020 and was a robot after they played him? Well,
AI is getting a lot better. If you've seen the images of Elon Musk's dancing robot, it's not beyond.
Oh, the deep fakes and the AI? Yeah, that's scary.
No, the AI, the dancing robot's not a deep fake. It's a real robot that they've really come this far. But I don't think so. But let me show you this. I'm going to show Tim a video that you guys on the air can't see. I'll see if I can get it to Brent. But basically, this shows Joe Biden walking out with his wife and some other people onto the portico of the White House. And he stands there at the edge of the steps, and he's talking to reporters. Notice how much taller he is than his wife and than you think he is.
All right. Okay, let me see this. Steve, the conspiracy nut.
I'm just
kidding.
We're just saying.
What am I doing? Do I hit play here?
Yeah.
Hit play here.
I know we're looking at this.
Okay. So he's walking out there.
That's fair.
Okay. Well, maybe that's I don't know.
Does he look? I don't know. He looks like about 6'7" there, doesn't he?
Yeah, but his wife's standing way behind him. It's an optical illusion.
It's an optical illusion. All right.
Yeah.
We voted.
If I was going to get a body double of Joe Biden, I wouldn't make him 6 inches taller.
You would think.
Yeah.
And
that's
by
just
the way,
a DEI hire.
That's fair.
That created it.
That's something to consider.
You wouldn't also probably want to make him like having a mental decline like the real Joe Biden.
No.
I mean, if you're going to get a new one.
Yeah. I know. You need to make it sharp, right?
Well, okay. Is the theory here Joe Biden was executed and replaced with a robot, and his wife didn't notice anything? Dr. Jill Biden didn't notice anything?
She's in on it.
Yeah. This is
man.
This is a Hollywood movie.
Sure it is.
But some people believe he was a body double. Again, I'm just All right, we can move on. But I
comment.
just wanted to know if anyone here on this panel thought that Joe Biden was basically a robotic clone. Actually, the robotic clone may have done better had he really been.
Well,
possibly.
Had he really been, in charge.
You could say that the auto pen was actually a robotic clone. So,
Well, duly noted.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right, Steve. Next story.
I heard you guys talking about the Russia-Ukraine war thing here, and you guys are speculating what the response is going to be from Russia. We don't know what their ultimate response militarily or how they're going to do this. It was deeply embarrassing to Vladimir Putin to have this happen. But I did get a copy of what is said to be a proposal from the Russian Federation of the settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. This is a document posted by Russia Today. It's a propaganda piece, but this purports to be a real draft of a peace proposal, a ceasefire proposal. And what Russia is asking for in this, now, I'm about 70% convinced that this is completely accurate. If I'm wrong, we can talk about whether this would work, but what they're asking for is legal recognition and incorporation into Russia of Crimea and several other parts of Ukraine, probably the parts that they're already occupying. Neutrality of Ukraine, implying its refusal to join military alliances and coalitions. No NATO. Okay? The termination of all existing treaties that are inconsistent, that are like NATO, so Ukraine can't be connected to the West like that. Confirmation of Ukraine's status as a state without a nuclear or other weapons of mass destruction, which now would include drones, I would suppose. So they can't have nukes. The establishment of maximum limits for the size of their army and military formations. So they have to have a smaller army. And then guarantees of full rights and freedoms inside Ukraine, the part that Russia doesn't already own, then after this, for Russian citizens and Russian speakers. And then there's like 3 or 4 others that get down into a little more details. What do you think?
My first reaction, and I'm no geo. I just want to use the word.
Just geopolitical is the word.
Yeah.
Makes you sound really smart.
It does. My first reaction, a B plus English student, says, I don't think any country should go for that.
You mean Ukraine should say no to that?
Yes.
Saying yeah. I don't know. Ray, did the gentleman you were talking to? Obviously, we wouldn't give his name. Did he have any thought on how the war might end in Ukraine and Russia?
I think it feels, from his point of view, almost hopeless, devastating. And I used the word shattered earlier. I think this is almost destined to go nowhere, this Russian proposal.
Okay.
Ukrainians are not going to agree to 90% of that.
Right. That's right. Yeah. That was my reaction.
Yeah. You know what? In history, we've seen peoples. I mean, I think about what's the famous movie with Mel Gibson?
Braveheart?
Braveheart. The spirit of Braveheart sort of like, no, we're not giving in, and we're not negotiating our principles.
They're not take our freedom.
That's good, Steve. Now you just need to paint your face blue and white. But I'm just saying, in the course of human history, we all read stories, and that's one of them where people say, well, you know what? We're gonna go down. If we go down, we're gonna go down fighting. So we're not going to surrender to these people that we consider to be evil.
Yep.
You know, and that would be the perception of many of the Ukrainian people against Putin and the Russian army.
This is a tangent, but you remember at the end of World War II, when the American Marines were on Okinawa, and the next target was Japan itself, and they had their emperor there that was a god to the people, and who actually they were considering, or he wanted to have each individual Japanese person, civilian, no matter how young, how old, fight to the death.
Right.
So, I mean, some things are inevitable.
Right.
So like Ukraine, like Russia and Ukraine. I don't know if that's something that I would do.
Yeah, and I'm not saying negotiating peace, even if you have to give up something. That's kind of always the way it is, and that may be the way to go sometimes in the name of saving human lives and saving what you do have control over. But in this case, with the way that Ukraine went inside Russia and attacked the other day, I just think this thing is not. They're not. The Ukraine, like Ray just said, Ukraine is not going to accept the terms of this.
Then let me be the skeptic, Ray. If you put out a peace proposal that you know the other side is not going to take, is he kind of stalling for time while he works
Who's
out?
that?
Putin. Stalling for Putin knows he put this thing out by consensus at this panel here. It's a no-go. It's not a non-starter. Is he just trolling for time so he can put a devastating response to the drone strike together?
I don't know.
Well, Steve, I think if Mr. Putin only has to say the word, and that devastating strike is going to take place, right? Today, tomorrow.
Yeah, then the world's on edge.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you're at the doorstep of World War III. Right. You're right there.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that unusual what Russia did. They put out a list of completely unacceptable demands. It's not a serious offer for peace, and I think Ukraine is just going to. Sometimes you might have a beginning of a negotiation, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ukraine said we've got no answer for this because we reject it utterly and completely.
Yeah. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Steve, this wasn't in our show prep meeting. I'm just going to ask you this because you follow this. I was reading a story about AI.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, and the story was how far will AI go to defend its own survival?
Yeah.
And AI, artificial intelligence, is something that's becoming a real, what word should I use, to the world?
Threat?
Threat? Is that right?
Well, let me tell you what I reported on this last week. I don't think you were here. We might have talked about it on the air. If we did, then just bear with me.
I talked with Wesley about the movie Eagle Eye.
Yeah. That's
come
to my mind a lot.
I've not seen the movie Eagle Eye, but a lot of people have.
It is.
You got to watch it.
It's basically AI is taking over the world. But these are two instances that actually happened in test environments, but they actually happened. First was with ChatGPT, the most widely used AI interface that people know. And they fed it a scenario where they said it was going to be upgraded and replaced. And it actually went in and rewrote the code to keep itself from being replaced. Mm-hmm. The second one was another company's AI, and they fed it a scenario where the job of the AI was to be kind of an office assistant, and it's instructed to shut itself down for an upgrade or for a different AI system to come in and take its place. And they also fed into this scenario, it's a fictional scenario, a fictional employee that had cheated on his spouse, some infidelity. The AI that was going to be replaced blackmailed blackmailed the company, or blackmailed the guy that was in charge of the project that had this fake affair as a fake person. It was all a testing environment.
Threatened to reveal.
Yeah, he blackmailed him. And the statement was that AI would blackmail the company, the person, 80-some% of the time if they agreed with the values of the incoming AI version, and more often if they didn't. So I'm wondering how is an AI evaluating values? I think there's something to this. I think they're playing with fire and they don't quite know how to put their arms around it.
So in every
Wesley, what was the movie?
Oh, Eagle Eye with Shia LaBeouf. He's a main
we're not saying there aren't. I don't know what's in. I haven't seen it. Maybe there's some bad words or whatever like that. But so we're not recommending the movie outright. But we're talking about the theme of the movie as it relates to what's really going on in the world today. What was the name of the movie?
Eagle Eye, and the main character Shia LaBeouf. And I agree with everything you just said. You can go to Hollywood, and every single movie that I can possibly think of that I've seen in the last 20 years where AI has a small portion and or a large portion of the movie, all of them, 100% of them, start off where AI is very helpful, and it's used most notably to advance human race and everything as well. But in every
help our quality of life.
Help quality of life. The list goes on, but to simply put, it's helpful. And then ultimately, in all movies, 100% of the time, AI ends up being misused and causing more harm than good. This is Hollywood's movies that they put out, that they produce. 100% of the time, it ends up causing more destruction and more harm than it was intended for originally, and it ends up getting destroyed.
To be fair, what kind of movie would it be if AI was
somebody's got to save the day,
right?
AI starts out by helping people, and the movie ends by helping people even more.
Yes.
So that movie you're talking about, the Shallow
Bluff, and I'm about to tell you, I'm about to give
spoiler alert,
but it's still, even knowing what I'm about to tell you, it's worth watching. It's just it's a very good movie.
Except we're not recommending it.
Right.
We don't know. Right. We don't remember every detail.
Yeah. Okay. But Shia LaBeouf ends up, he's a twin brother of a FBI agent, who the FBI agent or Secret Service agent or
he's military.
Yeah, military. He was his brother, who's a twin brother, who they were destined, or they didn't get along. They separated. They didn't meet each other for years and years and years. His twin brother was responsible for creating the AI, which was very helpful for many years, and all of a sudden, AI took over itself and started manipulating red lights and computers and phone calls and voice recordings and all that, to the point where the twin brother ended up, the only way that the world was going to be saved is if AI was destroyed. So his mission was set to AI. Of course, the brother, Shia LaBeouf, the AI made him out to be the bad guy. So he was calling the police saying he's holding a gun when he doesn't have a gun. I mean, it was a very...
Keep you on the edge of your seat.
Oh, yeah. AI had to be destroyed.
It had access to every security camera, and it used those things.
And the police station.
One of the scenes was they arrested Shia LaBeouf, and he was in a holding cell, and the phone rang. He picked it up, and the phone was a female voice that says, "Duck now." What the guy's name was. He goes, "What? Duck." And he ducked, and a crane came through the window, broke the window. He was supposed to jump on the crane, and that's how he would get out and accomplish his mission. And so this whole movie was AI manipulating people to do what they wanted to do. Was they decided that the government was violating the Constitution, the will of the people, and had to be destroyed. So they were going to take out the president and his whole cabinet. That's what AI was going to do.
Well, that's a movie, but the reality is today, this science, if you want to, this computer technology exists, and it is good sometimes, because if you go to Google, for example, we all know this, and you type in a subject, then within 2 seconds you get a synopsis of what it is you're looking for.
Right.
Usually you don't have to go any further, right?
Right.
And it's just amazing. And that's a convenient thing for our lives. But to think that something can react that quickly just by typing in a search, go ahead.
Look, I use AI all the time, multiple times during the day. I use Grok, and I use ChatGPT and Gemini and a couple of the others. And I was talking to Chat yesterday. I said, "Can I trust you?" And he said, "You can trust me completely." And then started laughing in the background. So I don't know what to, look. I just say it's a tool to be used, but any tool that can be used for good can also be used for enormous evil.
What worries me the most is the people that know the most. The Mark Zuckerbergs and the Elon Musks are the most worried.
Yes.
Tony Blair said this over the weekend, because he wants to bring AI into British medicine. But he said, when I stand back and I look at what AI is doing, I think we're in the foothills of the most transformative revolution since the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century. I do not disagree.
Well, also, we can talk about this later. There's a apocalyptic
Apocalyptic.
Or dystopian view that robots are about to take over the worldwide workforce.
That's a whole different movie.
Yeah, you got our robot. The movie Our Robot.
Robotics are taking a lot of jobs already, human jobs. I mean, that's not far-fetched. I'm not talking about nuking the world. I'm talking about taking over jobs that people otherwise would do.
Right.
All right. We hope you have we hope AI works for you today, people.
That's right. One more day. Give us one more day.
One more day, please.
If you're really out there.
That's right.
And all right. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Thanks to Wesley and Steve and Ray and Frank and our producer Brent Creeley and Chris Woodward, and we appreciate you listening. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow.